Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to completely strip away the cinematic mythology of William Wallace to reveal the gritty, historical reality of his actual life. We've all seen the epic movies, right? We've heard the legendary tales. But the actual historical record of this guy is far more complex, much darker, and honestly, arguably a lot more impressive than anything you've ever seen on the silver screen. So, let's dive right in and ask ourselves, who was this man truly? Once you get past all the Hollywood spectacle, it is incredibly easy to picture him as just a lone, painted warrior screaming for freedom on a battlefield. But to really grasp his historical legacy, we've got to look past the dramatization and dig directly into the established facts of the era. And right away, the reality is going to shatter some of those preconceived notions. While we might picture that impulsive, lone warrior acting on pure emotion, the historical record actually shows us a highly calculating, strategic leader. He was driven by ruthless determination. And he wasn't some peasant who just rose out of nowhere either. He actually hailed from the minor Scottish nobility. Let's step beyond that Hollywood spectacle for a minute and really look at his actual origins. You see, Wallace didn't just wake up one morning as a grand national liberator. Born into the minor Scottish nobility back in the 13th century, he was very much a man of his time, operating within the specific social and political structures of medieval Scotland. His early life wouldn't have necessarily tipped anyone off that he was destined to become the face of a massive rebellion. So, what changed? Well, external circumstances totally forced his hand, specifically the sheer chaos and brutal occupation of his homeland following the English invasion led by King Edward I. Wallace emerged straight out of this widespread devastation. The incredibly brutal reality of an occupied Scotland was the crucible that forged his ruthless determination. He didn't just choose to fight for the fun of it, the historical context literally demanded it. And that environment is exactly what turned this minor nobleman into an absolute master of asymmetric warfare. Now, the crucial thing to understand here is asymmetric warfare. Picture the situation. Wallace's forces were significantly smaller and way less equipped than the invading English army. If he tried to engage in traditional open-field combat, it would have been a massive, deadly mistake. So, asymmetric tactics were an absolute necessity just to survive. He had to outsmart a superior, highly funded invading force by simply refusing to play by their rules. Which brings us to a massive, pivotal year in the Wars of Scottish Independence, 1297. This is the year where Wallace's strategic brilliance truly comes into focus on the historical stage. 1297 was the year of the legendary Battle of Stirling Bridge. And let me tell you, this was not just another minor skirmish. It was a massive military engagement that sent immediate, terrifying shockwaves through the entire feudal order. The English arrived fully expecting a standard routing of a lesser force, but Wallace, he had a very different plan. This moment brilliantly illustrates his tactical mastery. Step 1, he utilized the terrain to his absolute advantage. Step 2, he forced the English army to cross this narrow bridge, which created a deadly choke point. Because of that, the English were completely unable to deploy their full numerical strength or maneuver effectively at all. And finally, step 3, once a portion of those English forces crossed, Wallace unleashed his highly disciplined infantry right at them. He totally trapped an overconfident enemy, neutralizing their heavy cavalry. Stirling Bridge proved a terrifying new reality to the invaders. Disciplined infantry, when motivated by a singular purpose, could challenge the absolute dominance of the knightly class. For centuries, heavy cavalry was the undisputed king of the battlefield, but Wallace flipped that completely on its head. It wasn't just a battle, it was a profound act of defiance that fundamentally changed the trajectory of the Scottish resistance forever. It proved, beyond a doubt, that the English war machine could be broken. Of course, defying an empire comes with a cost. Which brings us to the tragic, yet deeply transformative execution and martyrdom of William Wallace. The brutal reality of his struggle culminated with incredibly high personal stakes in the year 1305. The English crown had been severely humiliated. They recognized the deep threat Wallace posed to their authority, and they pursued him relentlessly. Looking at the timeline, it's a dramatic rise and fall. He emerges from the chaos of the 13th century, achieves that incredible decisive victory in 1297, but sadly, his luck eventually ran out. By 1305, following a bitter betrayal, he was captured, subjected to a brutal trial, and faced a horrific execution down in London.
The English intended this to be a definitive, gruesome warning to anyone else who might even think about rebelling.
But instead of extinguishing the uprising like the English so desperately hoped, his execution completely backfired. His death served as a powerful catalyst. William Wallace instantly transitioned from a military leader into a legendary martyr for the Scottish cause. His sacrifice crystallized the resistance. Actually, you could say his martyrdom directly paved the way for what was to come next. The fiery defiance that Wallace ignited allowed for the eventual consolidation of Scottish independence under another towering historical figure, Robert the Bruce. Without Wallace's asymmetric victories and his ultimate sacrifice, the foundation for an independent Scotland, honestly, might never have been laid. So, why does he remain such an enduring symbol today? It's because he is the archetypal underdog. Wallace remains this immensely powerful symbol of resistance because he represents the kind of underdog that all of us are universally drawn to. It's not just about Scottish history anymore, it's a deeply human story. He is the ultimate example of the individual who flat out refuses to bend to the overwhelming weight of massive institutional power. We naturally root for the person who stands up to the giant, regardless of the personal cost. His life leaves us with a very visceral reminder. True historical legacies aren't just handed out. They are forged in the fires of personal sacrifice and the unwavering pursuit of autonomy. It's a stark, undeniable truth about human nature and our fundamental, built-in desire for freedom. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative thought to chew on. When you look around today's world, a world that is still filled with overwhelming institutional power and massive imbalances of resources, who are our modern archetypal underdogs? Who is out there employing their own forms of asymmetric resistance to challenge the status quo today? Keep that question in mind and never underestimate the impact of a single individual fueled by unwavering determination. Thank you so much for joining me, and keep questioning the history behind the myths.